Hello, everyone. So I'm going to do the Kenny Game Jam, which is, I believe, this Friday, the 18th. Yeah, the 18th, 48-hour game jam. Um, so in order to do that, I have a little setup to do. I use a. It's not even considered a. Well, it's a framework. It's just a bunch of graphic calls, and but there is some setup that has to be done. So I'm going to do that now. This is what here is what's on the screen right now is I made a real quick screen for the actual stream itself. So let's do this. Let's get the compiler up, and we're going to be. It's going to be Kenny Game Jam 2025. Is that good? I don't like really long names. I hate it. So I should say I don't like long names in titles of stuff because I have to type it in all the time. So we're going to create a new project. This is an empty project, just Windows, console, and C++. Actually, I program in C. I use the C++ compiler, but you won't see any C++ from me. Next. And so now we're going to do this, and so we're going to call this Kenny Game Jam. There's a folder for this. 2025. That should just about do it. Okay, so now we have to set up SDL3. So when you set up a project like this, you have to bring in libraries from the outside. So, and that's what I use. I use three libraries. I use SDL3's library. I use SDL image, which is just an image handler that allows you to load ping files, all kinds of different files, without actually having to know the format and to decompress it yourself. And then there's SDL underscore mixer, which allows you to play music. Now SDL3 has a nice handler for that, but I'm not that familiar with it. I'm unfamiliar with SDL underscore mixer. So in order for those three things to be part of this project, you have to bring in libraries and use DLLs at runtime. So I'm not going to be always use release mode and not debug mode. I know a lot of people. I know that is it John Carmack, guy who wrote Doom, all those guys, Wolfenstein, him. He's a big believer in debug. But I've been programming for 40 years and I just never got used to using it. I wish I had, but I haven't. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to add a new file, a C++ file. I'm going to call it main application. Main application. Okay. Now I have other projects that I pull from that have setups in it already. This is from another game jam. So, but I have basic information that I use every time. So we're going to use this. You see all these underscores. I don't have any the include files and all other stuff set up for this yet. So I just want to get it so that I can get something up and running. So main application. So now let's add some header files. Defines. Oops. Structs. Oops. I'm a horrible typist. And Now this is one of the reasons why I use these compilers, or why I use Visual Studio, and this is in C++ environment, because it allows me to do one of my biggest weaknesses as a C programmer was forgetting the correct parameters I would use for a function call. So under defines, so I have a whole bunch of defines here in my other file. So let's do this. So it defines. There we go. SDL underscore mixer, SDL underscore H. Whoops. You really wanted to do it only once. So there's that, and that. Let's take a look at main application. Where is all my, they're in here already. So we're going to start bringing in the libraries and stuff now. So what you have to do is you have to bring in headers, point to the headers, and point to the .lib files. So when you do that, you go to Project, Properties, and under Directories. And so I'm actually looking at my other stuff here. So include directories. So the first directory is for the development. Actually, this is this compiler, when it comes to this Visual Studio, it's very, very good at this. So this is SDL3. The most recent thing I've been using is the February 20th, 2025. This is the development version. SDL3 2.24. This is include. I leave this part here. I don't actually go into this directory. I leave SDL3 out. So I select this folder. So that's where the headers are going to be for the actual SDL3 library. Now we also have to take into consideration the SDL3, what is this, February, image handler. I try and keep everything in a one central folder of all the most recent stuff. There's image, and now this is always the one that's a pain in the ass. Where I put it. So this is under SDL3 2025 SDL3 underscore whoops, wrong place. SDL mixer, because mixer doesn't have an already doesn't have all the object files. So I had to compile this myself, and I stuck it in a directory, and I don't want to move it. I'm just lazy. So it's on mixer dash main. Where is that? There it is. Mixer dash main. Include. And then SDL3 underscore mixer. That's where the header file is for SDL3. Select this folder. So those are the three headers, and now I still have to add, and I'm not quite sure why we have to do this, but I do. Whoops, what was that? That's wrong. There we go. I actually have to add the Kenny Game Jam 2025. Select folder. OK, apply. OK. So everything's in, except for prototype. Sometimes I spell stuff wrong. Why is this not? See, sometimes what happens is, well, I should be able to compile this right now. What is going on here? Prototype, prototype.h. Prototype.h. It's right there. What's the problem? What's the problem? Well, that's what we're going to do here. Close the compiler. Sometimes this happens. I don't know why it does, but it does. See, it's gone. Nope, it's not gone. Better compile now. Wow, what's going on here? I've never had this problem before. This usually just comes up. There it is. I have on the other screen, on my other monitor, I have this where it says hello world, so we're good there. Cannot open source file prototype.h. See, it's usually because I spell something wrong. Let's do this. Remove. Delete permanently. Yeah, it's gone. So now, add new item, header file. Prototype.h. In Kenny. Okay, so we're good. Error's gone. Who knows? Cannot open file, Kenny. This is all very weird. And I don't know if it's because I have this other piece of software up. Oh, you know what, maybe. Sometimes what happens is an executable, no? I do not know what the major malfunction is here. I haven't had this. I don't think I've ever had this kind of trouble before. I gotta start over again. Structs defines. prototype. Alright. Don't know what's going on. I really don't know. And I'm not going to fight this. So, let's do that. Let's try it again. 1 second. Let's just try one more time. Candy Game Jam. Okay. And then we're going to go about this the hard way. I don't know what's going on. I really don't. I'm going to start over again. Oh, so is that the problem? So that is the problem usually, is to get a, you can't run it because it's running somewhere else. And I don't see it up anywhere. I looked at Task Manager. And I don't see it in all this. Oh, there it is. Suspended. There it is. Okay. I think what happened is when I deleted that header file, sent Kenny into La La Land. There. Works now. Weird. So, prototype structs defines main application. So we're all good here. Also, sometimes what happens is, for some reason, this compiler. Okay, so that seems to be working. So now, let's open up. It also might have caused because of this. Sometimes when I have the compiler up like this, causes the problem. So, let's go into, I want to make sure that project properties. Okay, so folders, yes, okay, so we're here. And everything, all the include files work. Now we have the library directories. And make sure I have this correct as well. Library directories. Oh, I'll bet you I know it's what it was. Yeah, I bet that's what it was. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Library directories. Edit. So the first one is for the executable, or for the main library. The executable, yeah, that's it. SDL 2025 development. SDL SDL3 Lib 64-bit. That should do it. Next one is for SDL3 image handler. 64-bit handler, we're good. And then the next one is for the mixer. Oh, you know what? I just put the mixer live and the DLL in the folder. Actually, you know what? I have another piece of software here. Do I work something out? Oh, there it is. So let's look at this project properties, directories. Okay. Image. Okay, so here we go. SDL3 underscore mixer. Mixer main Visual C x64 release. And that's where the lib is. Okay. Apply. Okay. Now let's compile and see if it works. Still compiles. Yeah, no problem. So the libraries and the headers are linked. That's the hard, well, I should say that's the hard part, but that makes everything else. Now all I gotta do is program. So, initialize application. So we're gonna add that. C file. oops. ALICE. Initialize application. Initialize application. Add. Okay, so where is initialize application here? Okay, so yeah, we're not using GLAD. It was going to be a I was looking at some 3D thing. I'm not going to use any of that. So mixer header. Okay, so int. Actually, let's just take this from here. Initialize application, blah, 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 blah. Init. Screen height, screen width. Renderer. I don't need this. Game is inactive, so it's in the defines. Need all of these. These are all generic. I use in every game, so just like using an engine, only not. Game version, level 1, name length, size of game info, that's in structs. So let's go to structs and get my game handler from my game structure handler. Okay. Player. Yeah. There's my player, there it is. There's my animation handler, my high score handler, vector 2, button handler. Okay, so button handler, vector 2, definition and animation handler or structure. And in this I pull in animation high score vector 2 button info. There we go. That's it. Max name length, that's not in here. Max name length, max names. This is for a handler I write for high score. Handler. Okay, let's take a look at this initialized application. Game version level 1, name, max name length. Let's take these out. Let's see if this compiles. Save all. Game board. Where's that? Oh, I don't need that. From another. Yeah, I don't need that. Okay, so that's just library stuff now. Define symbol log rand in it. Okay. So now we have to set up the libraries. That's under the linker. Under input. And then default libraries. Edit. That's over here. So let's just grab them all. Don't need this one. There we go. Mixer image live. Okay. Apply. Okay. Let's see if it does it now. What was that? Oh, jeez, what a dummy. Okay, so libraries are being linked now as well. So we're good. Create window. So. Okay, so it's created. So we're going to do this. Initialize application. We don't need context, we don't need proc address, we don't need any of that crap. So, textures. For all the textures. Audio. Background music. Okay, so any of this other stuff. Okay. So these are all basic things I use. I use a main texture, which is normally the tile set. A background texture for the game. A game board. I don't need this. That's for another game I was messing with. End screen, start screen, rule screen, and then for the text, text texture as well. I think there's one. I think the Kenny has textures you can use for glyph text, background music. So in defines, we have a whole list of these things. There they are. Save all. I don't need this game board sheet. Save all. Okay. Initialize applications. That all cleaned up. Yep. I'm gonna get all kinds of errors here because I don't have any of these in here. So next thing we need to do is we need to make a folder called resources. Right now we're just going to put placeholders in here. Where are you at? Tic-tac. I was running a tic-tac-toe game. I was going to figure out how to it's a game to teach itself how to play tic-tac-toe. There's a way to do that, by the way. How to teach it how to play tic-tac-toe. It's not that hard, actually. Okay. What? It is hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. This kind of fact is not hard. I am saying that for a computer to teach itself from a given set of rules, it'll not make you crazy. So, see if I get any errors here. Nope. So let's rebuild all just to be sure. Where you at? Rebuild all. Rebuild solution. Run it. Okay. So that means all the linkers, all the placeholders are being loaded. So now all I have to do is put in the game loop. I think. Add new item. Game loop. Game loop. Game loop. What am I doing here? Game loop. Okay. Jeez Louise. That was horrible. Alright, where's the game loop here? There it is. And here's the game loop. So let's just grab all this code here. Render main board, we don't need that. End game handler. Terminate application. So I need to put that in still. So add new item. Terminate. I always put an O in there. Terminate application. Okay, so where do I have that here? Close audio, destroy render, blah 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 blah. Okay. No, so where's the error? Oh, it's not in prototype, my bad. So prototype. Initialize application. You have to define all this stuff and let the compiler know that this function really exists, that you wrote it, and that it does not, you're not pulling it out of your ass. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, so now write application, initialize application, and game loop. Oh, game pointer. Still need it's a file called tables that I use to hold all my, well, they're not not globals, but they are global, so I don't care what people think. I do use globals. Not it's what it is. When I first became a programmer, I worked for a Linux house. Actually, it was a Unix house before Linux was even around. I worked for a Unix shop that we wrote software for, real cop software. You know, like when a policeman pulls up behind you and he's running your driver's license and all that stuff. I worked on that software, that kind of software, before it was actually a thing. I worked on the Baltimore County Sheriff's Department. I worked with them. We sold them a piece of software, and we had to write it from scratch. So, now what? Game porter undeclared identifier. What? Oh, I know what it is. My bad. Sorry. You're right. I'm wrong. You're smart. I'm dumb. Game loop. Put that in prototype. Here. I try and keep things in alphabetical order. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So if I have to go look for a function call, it's right there. File, save all. Okay, now, okay. So all the DLLs have to be in the folder that has the executable, because the libraries and the DLLs are two different things. The libraries are not for executables. The DLLs are. But you can statically link a library if you want to. I just prefer to dump the DLLs because if they ever update something, say SDL updates something, but they don't change the function calls or anything like that. They go into a function. Say they fix a bug. All I need is the DLL, and I just upload the new DLL rather than recompile the whole mess as a static library. Tic-tac-toe, what am I doing here? DLLs. 1, 2, 3. So we copy those, is that right? And then we go to Kenny. I'm doing this off screen, I know, my bad. And then we paste it. Let's try it again. There it is. That music is from, that's a pretty generic music. It's kind of pretty though, huh? The blue screen, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, so we'll see. That's it. I'm pretty much ready. Nice tune though, huh? The guy, I asked ChatGPT to give me a song that sounded like a Stardew Valley kind of thing, Game of Thrones kind of thing. Said, go look at this guy's stuff, and I did. Man, his stuff is primo. Anyway, so it looks like I'm set up, ready to go, ready to rock and roll. And so when they release the theme, I'll be ready to go. So this is nothing else more than set up. See, an engine does all this. It does it all for you. Whereas I have to do it all by hand. I shouldn't say have to. The juice for me is not the game itself. Excuse me. The juice for me is not the graphics. It's not the music, although the music I find is pretty nice. The juice for me is the programming. Everybody else avoids that, it seems, but I don't. I've been doing it for 40 years, so and I love every second of it. I'm 72 years old, and I started programming when I was in my 20s on an old Atari 400. Membrane keyboard, no storage device. But man, I was committed. I was determined. And I got my first programming job. That's a long story. But the place I went to work for, the place where I told you about, I had the cop software and all that. They were the first outfit I ever worked for. And they were looking for C coders. This is a long time ago when a C coder was like almost non-existent. But I taught myself C on the Atari. On the Atari STs. 520, I had a 520 ST and a 1040 later on. And so I said, listen, I know C. And so I went down there with my buddy. They needed C programmers bad. And he was kind of a C programmer. He was a nice kid. But I was a C programmer. And so they gave us a test, a logic test. I'm horrible at tests, and I flunked the test, but my buddy got in. So they told me, they said, listen, we can't use you. I said, why? He says, well, you didn't pass the test. I said, listen, I'm a C coder. I'll tell you what I do. Give me the weekend. I'll come down on Monday, and I'll show you. So over the weekend, I wrote this huge graphics program on my 520 ST. Then I grabbed my 520. I grabbed a little monitor, it was all on TV back then. Actually, no, I had a monitor. That's right. I grabbed my monitor, my computer, and had a little 5 and a 3 and a. What were they? They were fun. It was 5 and a quarter, 5.5, 3 and a quarter, and a 3 1/4 inch. They were hard plastic floppy disk. And I brought that down with me. Took it all up. I had also printed out all my source code. He looked at me. He goes, "You know what? That's C code. You're hired." And that's how my career as a C coder got started. I don't care. I'd have figured out something else that hadn't worked out because I love coding. Anyway, I guess that's it. God bless you all. And hope you enjoyed the video, the stream. I'm going to make another stream on how to deal with itch.io because there's some cool stuff you can do with itch.io. Anyway, let me see if I can stop this. Where am I? Yeah. End stream. Okay. 42 minutes.